Welcome to our final presentation for EDF3211 Inclusive Education, where we will be exploring the concept of peer tutoring. Giving this presentation today are Annabelle, Sara, Denise and Xavier. We will all be explaining and exploring the different aspects of peer tutoring in context as well as in a more theoretical way. We hope this presentation allows for some deeper understanding regarding the topic of peer tutoring. Now we will be exploring the classroom context. When using peer tutoring, it is important to identify the demographic of your current classroom. For our particular classroom, it is evidently diverse with a range of student backgrounds and abilities, all of which allow for a rich learning environment. Our classroom is a Year 6 cohort within a public school setting encompassing 25 extremely bright students, of which 60% are males, 40% females. There are also 5 EAL students within our classroom, 3 of which come from Chinese backgrounds with quite substantial understanding of the English language, and 2 Syrian children from refugee backgrounds, of which have very limited experience with the English language. Our classroom also has 2 students with mild visual impairments. There are also 3 students who are classified as gifted intellectually across both English and mathematical standpoints.
Now, we are going to discuss the student needs of our classroom. As mentioned earlier, our class is a diverse group of learners. We do have a slightly more male population than females. Teachers should constantly remind students to respect their peers of other gender. This will help to foster a more friendly learning atmosphere. We have 5 EAL students, which suggests that the tutors of these students should be the ones that are higher achieving and more confident in their reading. By doing so, the deeper understanding of the language can be put into use to help in explaining and transmitting information. One of our EAL students is capable in both English and Mandarin, should be a good tutor for the less confident English speaker of the class. To aid the visually impaired students, instructions of the program and set work for them will be printed in bigger font and colored paper. Students of refugee background are found to be more timid and shy. We will try to pair them up with tutors that are more outgoing and friendly to increase their engagement in the program.
Now we will be exploring the theory behind using peer tutoring.
Peer tutoring is a form of peer-mediated instruction. It is an alternative teaching arrangement in which peer serves as an instructional agent such as a tutor or a model for the classmates or students. Peer tutoring is also an evidence-based teaching strategy focusing on the programmed interaction between peers. It can provide high rates of response opportunities for all students, both with or without disabilities. Peer tutoring emphasizes an equality of roles amongst all students, mutual assistance, shared goals, interdependency, and group cohesion. Hence, when employed peer tutoring, a child is neither stigmatized for poor achievement nor required to abandon his or her identity as part of a group to succeed academically. And a key benefit of peer tutoring is that it can foster positive pro-social skills.
There are 2 types of peer tutoring, same age and cross age. Same age peer tutoring is when a more capable student works with a less capable peer, whereas cross age peer tutoring is when an older student works with a younger student. In both cases, for peer tutoring to be effective, the tutor must be taught what to teach and how to teach it.
According to Ashman, there are heaps of benefits for employing peer tutoring as an inclusive pedagogy, both to the tutors and to the tutee. For the tutee, they have extra opportunities to practice and receive immediate personalized feedback. They can also foster interpersonal relationships and practice their social and communication skills. Moreover, learning from peers provides momentum to stay motivated in learning. In terms of benefits for the tutor, they can develop a stronger understanding of themselves and their peers both academically and socially. It also helps with establishing and strengthening interpersonal relationships.
Peer tutoring also encompasses collaboration and peer assessment. Collaboration highlights the importance of social interaction between students, and as explored by DaCosta, Clifton, and Rowan, collaboration also encompasses the work of Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, meaning if you allow students with different ability levels to work together, it fosters social and cognitive growth that they wouldn't otherwise experience from solely engaging in independent learning activities. Collaboration also boosts confidence both academically and socially, as students will be comfortable when learning with the help of their peers. And because peer tutoring is student-led, it means they have to become more accountable and articulate with how they teach students, as what they teach and how they teach it will impact the outcome of their learning experiences. As well as using collaboration, peer assessment is also a useful learning tool, as it allows students to get immediate feedback from their peers in language they understand. Topping states that if done correctly, peer assessment is invaluable for giving students the motivation to succeed in their learning. It also supports the differentiation of ability of students, as they all have something to bring to discussions regardless of if they have a learning disability or not, which makes this a very inclusive practice.
I will now move on to talk about the rationale behind employing peer tutoring as an inclusive pedagogy. First, it enhances the level of participation. Peer tutoring supports students' participation by shifting responsibility for learning away from classroom teachers or teaching aid and onto the pupils themselves. Students can be more proactive and have more control over their own learning. Secondly, it promotes a level of engagement of all students who will increase as everyone has a role to play in peer tutoring, either as the tutor or the tutee. Compared with traditional teacher-led instruction method, peer tutoring can enhance level of engagement through active involvement of all students in class, promoting inclusion, cohesion, and collaboration. Lastly, it can effectively address an array of learning needs. Teachers can support learning needs of students with disability through employing peer tutoring, as it can increase the level of individualized instruction. In terms of efficacy and effectiveness, various research found peer tutoring to be effective in promoting academic gains across content areas. It is effective for elementary, middle, and high school students too. Other literature also supports the claim that peer tutoring is an adequate inclusive pedagogy that can be used in various age groups and instructional settings. However, some research highlight the fact that whether peer tutoring can be effectively implemented largely depends on whether peer tutors are trained prior to the commencement of the peer tutoring sessions. For instance, the appropriate way to deliver praise, make or error correction, and monitor the tutee's progress.
Although peer tutoring is a useful tool, there are some considerations to take into account. If students are not receiving enough feedback, this can greatly impact the learning experience from all accounts. As East et al. Comments, there are often occurrences where the tutor does not pass on meaningful feedback or only gives minimal or inconsistent feedback. This will greatly impact the learning of the tutee compared to other students. Therefore, it is important for the teacher to keep close attention to the groups to ensure that they are all adopting the proper practices to benefit everyone involved. It is also important to make sure that when using peer tutoring as a form of learning, that it is done for the subjects and content that the students moderately enjoy and have a fascination for. This is important because if both the tutor and tutee are not engaged in the material they are learning, peer tutoring will oftentimes not work to its full effect. This is because it highly relies on the tutor being knowledgeable of the topic and the tutee internalizing the feedback and the discussion. If groups for peer tutoring are constantly rearranged, it may also produce lower results, as once students are paired with a group or another individual, they begin to form relationships from the first interaction, which furthermore creates a safe, welcoming, and consistent learning environment. Therefore, if groups were to be changed every time peer tutoring comes into effect, this may hold some students' growth back. Once students become more comfortable with peer tutoring, this may be the time to swap groups around if need be. It is also extremely important that the tutor has some knowledge of the topic and or the available resources to find the information. Being a tutor requires both academic and social skills that some of the lower students may lack, meaning the tutor has to step up into an almost leadership role for the other students involved. So if the tutor does not have enough knowledge or practice regarding this concept, this may hold students back. We will now be giving some peer tutoring examples in context.
There are several different ways in which tutors can successfully guide learning. According to Ashman, they appear to work most effectively when students use the following procedures to help each other understand the material. The following two examples are related to reading in the primary years. Firstly, the tutor should model and then slowly fade the directions about the steps needed to complete the task. This is a form of scaffolding. The tutor should ask questions such as, what does the word start with? The tutor and the tutee should then say the first sound together until the tutee understands to look at the first letter and say its sound. Secondly, the tutor should provide step-by-step feedback to confirm and praise correct responses. The tutor then needs to explain and model strategic behavior when answers are incorrect. The tutor should confirm the sound is correct by saying, that's right, the letter at the start of the word is S and it makes a S sound. If the tutee is unsure where to begin, the tutor should prompt them. For example, they might say, look at the first letter and say the sound it makes. Let's say S together. Thirdly, both students should be engaging in ongoing written interactions together on the problem. The tutor needs to show the tutee how to write the word, and the tutee should then write it down and say its name. Finally, both the tutor and the tutee should swap roles during each lesson. The tutee then acts as the tutor and coaches the other student, thus demonstrating what they have learnt. Collaborative strategic reading is a peer tutoring approach that is designed to teach children strategies that successful readers use to understand written text. The 4 strategies include previewing, which requires making predictions about the text before reading it. Students are taught to skim the text and search for clues, such as pictures, headings, keywords, and phrases that may help them predict what the text is about. Clicking and clunking. This involves monitoring reading and learning in order to improve the development of students' vocabulary. Students are taught that when they recognize material that they know, this is a click, whereas when they come across concepts, words, or information that they are confused by, they have a clunk. When students identify a clunk, they need to find out more about it. Students should work together to discuss their clicks and clunks and help each other improve their vocabulary. Get the gist. This strategy focuses on the main ideas that are presented in the text. Students summarize it in their own words in 10 words or less. The aim of this is to teach students to focus on the key ideas and to leave out unnecessary details. The Get the Gist strategy should be practiced every 2 paragraphs in order to help students monitor their understanding. Students should take turns throughout the passage to check the main ideas of each paragraph with their group. Wrap up. This involves summing up the key ideas. After reading the whole text, students are taught to think of questions that a teacher may ask about what they have just read. This helps students to focus on the main ideas in the text and assists in their reading comprehension.
To conclude, we will provide an evaluation of using peer tutoring.
Peer tutoring can be extremely beneficial for a wide range of students with varying attributes, especially if educators ensure that the learning task has a specific and attainable goal and clear procedures that can lead to successful completion for all students. According to Ashman, several studies have demonstrated that not only students with disabilities benefit from peer tutoring, but that it can also be highly beneficial to students without learning impairments or disabilities. This is significant, as educators can sometimes be reluctant to use peer tutoring if they believe that there will be reduced benefits for students with disabilities or their peers who do not have a disability. Peer tutoring has proven to be a very effective teaching-learning approach across varying age and capability dimensions. There have been many studies conducted over the last 20 years that demonstrate that people with learning disabilities benefit both socially and academically from peer-mediated learning, whether they act as tutors or tutees or both. However, Peer tutoring is only beneficial to both tutors and tutees if the students have been appropriately selected and successfully trained in their roles by the teacher. The content being tutored must be appropriate to both the tutor and the tutee, and the progress toward a specific goal must be constantly monitored by the teacher. In order to improve the likelihood of gaining both the academic and social rewards that can be achieved through peer tutoring, the teacher should model positive social skills such as being a kind and respectful listener to your partner and sitting facing each other, taking turns to ask and answer relevant and appropriate questions in an orderly fashion, swapping positions once all the questions have been answered correctly. The tutor becomes the tutee and vice versa. Speaking in a calm, clear, and encouraging voice when answering questions or clarifying understanding. Motivating your partner by using encouraging statements such as "great job" or "excellent answer," writing down both correct and incorrect answers. And finally, going back over any incorrect answers and clarifying understanding. Furthermore, the teacher should have a good understanding of the classroom dynamic before employing peer tutoring strategies. Therefore, if the teacher is aware of students who do not work well together, they may not be suited to be partners for peer tutoring, and somebody else should be selected. Finally, it is important that the teacher monitors the students as they work on their tasks and intervenes if necessary in order to ensure that they understand what they are doing and that both students are contributing and learning.
We will now give a brief overview of our lesson plan that will accommodate the use of peer tutoring within a normal lesson. Our lesson largely focuses on the use of prompting questions in relation to individualized texts. The text that our tutees will be given will be first chosen by the educator themselves and then passed on to the tutor. The tutor will also be given at least 10 questions from the following categories: story structure, author's purpose, summarizing prompts, and also making predictions. It is important that the tutors are given a set of questions to work with their tutee so that they can focus their learning to specific points. Whilst the students are working through their novel together, the teacher will be able to walk around the classroom and see if anybody needs any assistance. Because although this learning experience is largely student-led, there are still opportunities for formative assessment to take place during this lesson. Students will also be given an exit card of 2 stars and a wish to show the teacher what went well and also what can be improved upon the next time peer tutoring is used within the classroom. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and we hope that you learnt something about using peer tutoring within your classrooms.